Time's up. Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an owl.
What about side by side with a friend?
The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In, where we hope you enjoy just getting away from all the bullshit that's out there and having fun celebrating good classic content, because that's what we do. We just want to have fun. And oh, we're gonna have fun tonight. I have been waiting for this one for a couple of weeks. Before we get into it, though, hail and howdy to the chat. Hail and howdy to my fellow panelists, my life mate, my person who cheats on me all the time, Jed, the Hollywood Scholar. How you doing this week, Jed?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back at Drive-In talking about a phenomenal movie, which my thoughts on have changed drastically. So I'm excited to jump in and talk about it because I have a lot of thoughts that I wasn't expecting. And one minor thing that might make Adam blow a gasket. So
listen.
It's not opinion based. It's not opinion based. It's not. You won't be mad at me.
Well, I have. Listen, I'm gonna. As much as I do love this movie, I have nitpicks. Don't get me wrong. I have nitpicks, which is what's going to drive down my score ever so slightly at the end. So I'm not going to go full fanboy here. I can tell you now, you're not getting a 10 out of 10 from me. I can tell you that now. It's not a 10 out of 10. As much as I love this movie, as I consider it the GOAT of all Star Wars movies, I'm not getting a 10 out of 10. But I have some points. You know, yesterday I watched it with the critical eye, the objective eye. So I have some thoughts. But I'm interested to see what you're going to say. Mustang, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm surviving.
You're surviving?
Discovering that you really are older than me, even though my age is older.
My knowledge doesn't make me older. I just know shit and I remember shit. I mean, we could talk about the thing that apparently makes me older than you next week when we do Jedi. But
everybody already knows about it because Jed and I were like, wait a minute, what the hell?
Everybody knows about it. It's lore.
I didn't know.
Neither did I.
And you really see it in the special edition because there's the extended moment. We'll talk about that next week. That's next week. Anyway, we may or may not be. Blah, I could speak. I swear to God. We may or may not be joined by another guest. We'll see what happens. Either way, let's get on with the show. Once again, though, hail and howdy the chat. Hail to Legatus Legionist, one of my mods, along with Mustang here, one of my regulars. Hail to Algrim the Strong. Always happy to see you here. I'm a moth. I'm a moth. I don't know if I want to be a moth. Jeez.
The bad guys are always cool. They get to dress better.
Hey, before we get started, can I show my toy?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right.
It's a carryover from a couple weeks ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I finally got it in. So,
hang on. Let me put you full screen. There you go. The Green Dragon. A little more to your right.
I can't go any more to the right.
I don't care. Break your damn tanks. I don't care.
That tank's worth more money than my house.
Damn.
Okay.
Literally, I got one coral in here. It's got 38 heads on it. Each head's $200.
Okay. And I know nothing about aquatic life. So anyway, so that's awesome, dude. You're gonna put that over your bar?
Right here.
Oh, you're put it right there. Okay. All right. It's part of your background. Okay, cool beans. Yep. Cool beans. I thought you could put over your bar for some reason. I don't know why.
I got two of them. One's going to go at the bar.
Oh,
he's actually making the Green Dragon drop banner too.
Okay. All right. See, I knew it was somewhere in there that was going to go over a bar. I knew it. Anyway,
he can make anything that we get him, and I showed him some Witcher stuff, and he's like,
Careful, you're going to make Jed horny. All right, so hail to Kale Adar. Good evening, Kale. Clinton Hoosh, how you doing, dude? Anybody else? And everybody else just watching, not chatting. We are happy to have you here. And if you're watching on the replay, we hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Obviously, you know what we're doing. There it is right behind me. I had to go from, normally I had the backdrop of Drive-In's thumbnail, but
you had to.
I had to.
It's Empire.
I had to. Yeah, it's Empire, and I'm gonna repeat this in a couple of weeks when we talk about it on the big Star Wars Day stream. This is my favorite poster of all the Empire posters. I love the original.
Really?
Poster. Yes, I love the original poster. I love it. I love it so much. It's so good. It encapsulates everything about Empire to me. But we're going to talk about posters on Star Wars Day. That's one of the topics I'm going to bring up. But I'll save that for that one. But Empire Strikes Back, the second movie in the original Star Wars trilogy. It did come out before I was born. So
no, it didn't.
Yeah. Well, okay. Okay, no, it didn't. It came out. Okay, I was born and it came out, but I couldn't go see it in the theater. I wasn't big enough.
It's okay that you were too young to go see it, but you absolutely were born when it came out in 80.
I was born. I did go see Jedi and Empire in the theater at the same time. When Jedi came out, there was a double feature, and I did go see that. That was when I first saw it in the theaters. But I didn't see them until Jedi. That's the thing. I didn't see them until Jedi because I was too young.
Legatus is making fun of you for being young.
Legatus always makes fun of me. What else is new,
dude? I had pretty much the same thing with the Phantom Menace for me. I was born right around when it came out. Mm-hmm. Like it came out in December, right? Phantom Menace. Or May?
No, it was summer because I was the one that waited online for everybody.
Okay, so
I got the horrible sunburn and nobody else did because mother effers left me there. My then buddy Andy, he was supposed to go with me that morning, and I call him, and he goes, "Huh?" on the phone. I'm like, "Yeah, you ready? What? No, I'll meet you there." Hang up. I go there, hours online, all by myself. It was a lot brighter than it had to be. I'm sitting there, son. None of my friends came from high school. We were all back from college. None of my friends came, and they left me to the wolves, except one. Her name was Allegra. She showed up out of nowhere. I didn't know she was even coming that day. She says, "Hi, Adam. Would you like me to sit with you?" And she had an umbrella. I was like, "You angel! You angel with your umbrella. Thank you for being..." And then my buddy Andy shows up with a shit-eating grin on his face 7 hours later. Going, "Hey." I was like, All right, but that's a Phantom Menace.
Allegra. I only know anyone named Allegra from the amazing movie Hitched.
Yeah, I won't dox her, give her last name. She might not even have that last name anymore. I haven't seen her in 30 years. But Allegra was great. She saved me that day. Allegra, if you ever see this, thank you for saving me on that hot day. And everybody else showed up later. I was already sunburned all the hell though, so it didn't matter.
Well, I just want to tell the chat I wasn't born yet when Phantom Menace came out.
Oh no. Well, yeah. Well, you're.
I was close. Only a few months off, but yeah, wasn't born yet.
You're a child. It's okay. Mustang, though, you saw it in theaters, did you?
Oh God, yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this then, Mustang.
Why
I know
are
this.
you gay?
No, I know this is this is one of the stories that went around when Empire came out. Did you ever hear of anybody getting it spoiled while they were waiting in line and somebody came out?
Yeah, I watched a guy get decked for it.
You garbled there. What'd you say?
I said I watched a guy get decked for it.
So somebody came out and said, "God damn, Darth Vader is Luke's father." For people who were waiting in line, that actually happened. You actually saw it happen.
Yeah, I actually saw it happen.
I've always heard the stories, but man, so you had a lot. Oh wow.
Well, the guy, I mean, I was
You're in
lucky
shock.
enough.
You're in shock.
No, I got the midnight screening, so this is on my probably third watch of the weekend. And people were coming out. I mean, even us after the midnight screening, we came out and everybody's in shock talking about it. There was no getting around. If you were in line, and that's when people actually stood in lines at the shows, you were getting spoiled because people walking past you were talking about it. The shock factor of that. The only thing I can relate that to of as great or maybe a little bit greater, Who Shot JR?
Mhm.
I mean, those are the two big shocks. And yeah, I mean, this one guy, he walked up to a dude and he flat out said, "Vader's Luke's dad," and the dude just nailed him. I was like, fuck.
You know what? Deservedly so.
He did. He deserved
I mean, why don't let's start with that. Let's talk about that for a second. Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion, redefined. In fact, up until then, can you guys think of things that actually had sequels? Up at this point,
These sequels existed, but they weren't a common occurrence. And when they were a lot of direct-to-video ones.
Or it's Godfather Part 2, and it's not quite the same. You know,
Jaws would be the only other one that I can.
Jaws 2, not the same.
No.
Well, when did Jaws 2 come out?
I don't know. Legatus will tell us in like 3 seconds.
I thought that was in the 80s. I thought Jaws 2 was in the 80s.
I don't know. What I'm saying, but this kind of redefined movie storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It was hype from the original release date of the first Star Wars. The hype was for the sequel. It never died down.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked about this when we talked about A New Hope on the previous incarnation of this show literally last year around this time. We did A New Hope. All right, Jaws 2. JB's got it.
Okay, so it was before
1978. Okay, but yeah, it's different. And Jaws 2 was not the same because that was a purely made for movie script. It wasn't based on the book, so it was just a thing and highly criticized. Even though I always thought it was cool where he makes it bite the power cable. I always thought that was kind of cool. But the whole idea of a sequel. A second chapter, or in this case, episode 5. I mean, that was so people were scratching their heads about that back then. But we'll just say the second part. It was unheard of, really, like this. Because this story, which Star Wars A New Hope, it had a sort of nice little bow tie ending. The good guys won, Death Star destroyed. Yeah, the war's still going on, but you could walk away from it and never, if Lucas had never done any more, you could have walked away from it and been okay. Is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, well, yeah, they didn't call it episode 5, JB, but it says episode 5 in the scroll. It always has.
No. The people were actually at the end of that, and I can tell you this from somebody who was there. People were like, "Where's episode 1, 2, and 3?"
Well, yeah.
That is actually and was a thing is where are the other episodes? And then after Empire, because when Empire we knew it was coming out because they had already teased a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, okay, how many are there? I mean, it was the greatest. How much are we going to get? Because everybody loved it, and it should have ended at episode 9. And in
hey, we got episode 9. It's called Last Command. We have episode. It's
there you go. Yeah, we do have episode 9.
We have episode. It's called Last Command.
The discussion I wanted to briefly have right here is the special editions versus the Disney edition and all of that. There
are 3. There's the original. Actually, there are 4.
Yeah,
I
there's
think.
4.
There-
The
there's
Disney
the
one
original.
sounds so different from the
Yeah, 4.
Blu-ray, but there is a difference. So yeah,
There's
it's
the
4.
original. I mean, right here. I mean, I've got right here. You and technically, I mean, there. This is the original one right here. I've got an original. That's original cut. Then this is special edition 2.0 because there is the special editions.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the ones like this one, which were slightly changed in a couple. Well, actually, you know what?
Isn't there 5?
This one is special edition 1.0. This one is special edition 1.0. Because this is the one when I got re-released in the theater that I saw. And then there's the Blu-ray ones. Special editions, which that's when Lucas started tinkering with it even more. That pissed off everybody. And then there are the Disney versions.
Right.
So,
Well, of the trilogy, I feel like Empire is the ones that got affected the least by the subsequent editions. Definitely the least. But what I wanted to bring up that might not make you very happy is
all right, let's get it out of the way.
I didn't have enough time to put in my VHS player and watch the actual version, so I had to watch it online to watch it at 2 times speed to get it done in time. And I didn't realize till about halfway through that it was a fan edit. It wasn't the actual special edition.
Oh, was it despecialized?
No. I think it was the special edition with fan edits on top of it. Because when Yoda's talking to Luke right after, like, he reveals that he's actually Yoda, you know, talking to Obi-Wan's ghost, he starts like mentioning the things about Luke's character. And they start doing flashbacks. They add in flashbacks. It was a little awkward. It was a little weird, but it worked for the most part up until they tried to use one of Yoda's lines to justify Disney. They had They had Luke, you know, he has his line, he's like, "I'm not afraid." And then Yoda goes, "You will be. You will be." And then they showed Jake Skywalker as he was always destined to be Jake Skywalker. Even Yoda knew he was going to end up in Last Jedi.
That's the fan edit. That is a YouTube fan edit.
That's what I'm saying.
Listen,
it's a fan edit, but
I'm gonna admit,
I was pissed. I nearly turned it off.
Yeah. I mean, I watched special edition because I like. We're going to talk about the special editions in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about originals versus special editions. That's a whole conversation. I actually like you said, I like the Empire special edition because it really doesn't. There's only added stuff. There's nothing destroyed. There could be one discussion about the Wampa. I know that's a thing, and we could talk about that tonight if you guys want to. But to me, the special edition doesn't really destroy the mystique of Empire. It only adds to it. So I've always been okay with it, and honestly, it's well known. It's no secret that I don't view the special editions as harshly as some other people do, because when I think of the special editions, I think about the first versions that were released in theaters, not the ones that were monkeyed with on the Blu-rays. Right. And with the exception of Han shooting first, that's the most egregious thing out of all 3 special editions that I ever have a bone to pick with. Outside of that, I'm okay with just about everything else. I'm not really that offended.
Yeah. But I actually think New Hope needs the Jabba thing. It's a little awkward, but it helps Empire and especially Return of the Jedi a lot. Yeah. It helps Return a lot.
I mean, again, we could talk about for a second there because it is a real scene. They just CGI'd in an actual hut because back then George hadn't decided. He didn't decide what huts were yet. He was just a dude, which is why the line, "You're a wonderful human being," that actually makes it funny because he was actually talking to a dude in a fur coat in the actual one.
I've seen the pre-CGI version of it. It's pretty funny. And once you know that it's, janked with afterwards, Han walking over the tail just looks so weird.
It does look weird, but I'm still okay with it.
Me too.
I'm okay with it.
Me too. That's one of the few special edition scenes that is necessary. Some of the other ones, just like you're saying, I'll take it or leave it, but that one's like, I think we need to have it.
We'll really talk about special edition changes in Jedi next week because there are some serious changes in special edition that one could be okay, but it's all in the beginning. It's only the special edition Jedi in the original cut of special edition 1.0. It was all in the beginning, not in the end. But that's Jedi. We have to stay with Empire. See, this is the problem. We range far and wide when we talk about this. We did a good job last year sticking with New Hope, but we got to stay in Empire. So,
Legatus, my more point is not seeing Jabba that's important. Like, I agree, the shock value in Return of the Jedi would be amazing, but just Han's story, I think We need the extra context. We need a context to know who he's running from, what the stakes are. Like Jabba specifically said, you owe me this much by this point, and we get a lot more of the hard data that we don't get otherwise because he's just like, I needed to take some money back to Tatooine at the end of New Hope. Without that scene, it's like, all right, cool. That sounds bad.
JB's
And then in
right.
Empire.
It was 81. 81 is when they added it in there because I just uploaded it and looked.
Mm.
I've got Star Wars on my computer, so I looked at the original.
Yeah. And Empire, he's trying to go back to Tatooine or trying to go back and pay off Jabba at the beginning of Empire. That's when he's trying to leave before the Battle of Hoth begins. And so I just feel like the extra context of who he's running from, what the point is, what are the stakes is essential. But I do agree that the shock value of seeing him in Return of the Jedi is pretty cool. Well,
that's the thing then. If you're going to show it to somebody the first time, you show them the original cuts. And that's something I do want to talk about tonight. We'll jump to that. We'll start this then. We'll move to this direction then. I want to do what I did with Lord of the Rings. I want to talk about favorite scenes because that leads to great discussions. And one of my favorite scenes. Okay, these are in no particular order, but I'm going to go with my three favorite scenes in the entire movie. The asteroid chase.
Of course.
That is, there's something about it. The intensity, the music, and we're gonna probably earlier than usual talk about the music than we normally do because you can't have the whole conversation tonight with and wait till the end to talk about John Williams' score. You can't wait for that. But the music, the interactions between everybody in the cockpit of the Falcon, the banter while it's going on, and then of course here's where I want to start this: the special effects.
Oh, they hold up so well.
Here's the thing. We know it's all model work. It was all model work. I've seen when I was young, they used to show the behind the scenes specials all the time when I was a kid on TV. I've seen them so many times when I was a kid. The special effects of original Star Wars, of A New Hope, it blew everybody's mind. But there was a certain level of it's not moving fast to it that they sort of adjusted with the special edition. But then in Empire, just 3 years later in 1980, wow. All the special effects in this movie look 100 times, million times better than any CGI vomit garbage that Disney pushes out today. Fight me. I
100% agree.
Yeah.
It's a moot subject.
It's just the watching the Millennium Falcon at high speed, first going at the 3 Star Destroyers, are all crashing each other, and then making us realize, they use the Z-axis to okay, we're living in a 3-dimensional world. Being chased by the 4 TIE fighters, moving fast as that. When they get into the asteroid field, the classic sways in, sways out. When it goes, it's just. And then the going between the asteroids, it is remarkable. It is beautiful. It's a work of art, and it is better than anything out there. It holds up today. There's no Uncanny Valley.
I think it looks better than the prequels. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but I just don't think CGI was good enough for the prequels yet. I think he pushed a little too far. And so there's a lot of Uncanny Valley, like you said. Not so much in Phantom Menace. Surprisingly, Phantom Menace, I think the one looks the most solid. Attack of the Clones is the worst. There's so much Uncanny Valley in Attack of the Clones. But the original trilogy is always on point. It looks so good. And I'm always a big proponent of doing puppets and models over CGI when possible. Of course, you can't do it. A good mix, like Lord of the Rings did the same thing. There was a lot of puppet work. There was a lot of model work, and it still holds up for the most part, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There's only a couple shots that I know from Lord of the Rings that look jank, like Aragorn at the Battle of Helm's Deep. When Gandalf arrives, you can tell he's on a green screen.
Yeah,
it's
you can see that.
Pretty obvious. But besides that, they do a phenomenal job. So that's why 90s, 80s, they hold up so well because there was care. There was art, just like you said. Right now, a lot of people, because of the demands of the timeline, these people have to look at it. These CGI creators, these modelers, they have to look at each project as a job with the deadline, or they're never going to be able to get done in time. And then people like Victoria Alonso are breathing down their necks and ruining their lives. But back then, it was art. That was this perspective that they were able to take And that's what created such great films. And I think that's beyond the wokeness, beyond all that, the corporatization of Hollywood to this degree is very damaging because it stopped being art. It started being just a job, started just being a product, not a masterpiece.
I mean, Mustang. To me, and to complete what I want to say here, we talked about the past. No, it's fine. No, you're fine. You're fine. We're still in this. We're still in this. When you look at this scene in the asteroid scene, I'm just using that as my example. It's a perfectly, and when I say orchestrated, I mean both visually and musically moment, isn't it?
Yeah, the music. Without the music, that scene would not have the impact that it does.
So would you say that even as great as the original soundtrack for A New Hope is, and it's a masterpiece on its own, to me, John Williams, when he scored Empire, this was the moment, in my opinion, he notched the first the first, what's a good word?
This is magnum opus.
This is where he became the GOAT. For me, this, because you have to look at every scene in this movie, every moment is perfectly scored. Like you just said, without the theme for the asteroid chase, it falls apart. But the whole thing, the music literally sways when the Millennium Falcon sways.
I will tell you, my favorite scene in the original 6 is the same in all 6. It's the opening scrawl. That music, the scrawl, just it's perfect. I mean, episode 4 comes out. That opening immediately immersed you and brought you into it. And in the music in episode 4, 5, 6, they carried. You can't have these shows be as great as they are and the scenes be as good as they are without the music to accompany them. You can't. It would not be the same.
Yep. John Williams, he's the glue that creates the escapism.
Yeah.
He's the glue that allows for the complete escapism, because you're pulled in. And the funny thing is, the asteroid track is one of my favorite all time, but the movie one and the actual original soundtrack, I'm talking when I had the CD way back in the day, when I used to listen to it all the time, was one of the things I listened to when I would go to bed at night when I was a kid. There's a slight difference in the movie track and the actual soundtrack. In the soundtrack,
little bit,
in the original soundtrack, when it's over, it just keeps repeating the main line of the asteroid chase theme. But in the movie, it transitions to Han and Leia's theme as the Falcon swoops down and goes into what turns out to be the giant space alien mouth. I love it. Because, and you know why? Again, that's perfect. Why it's a perfect change, a perfect scoring change from the track, because in that moment, there's a moment there where Leia's standing behind Han, and you realize that the emotion is there. You start to see the emotion because he's sort of listening to her, yet he's not. He goes, "That'll do nicely." What? Yeah, that'll do just nicely. And she's like, "What? What?" And she's, it's just something about it. I feel the chemistry there. And that's why and the theme, where you've got the Han and Leia theme, which you've only sort of heard in earlier parts of the movie, because we're coming to the kiss very soon. The kiss where he doesn't force himself on her, because when you zoom out, she's got her hand wrapped around his head. She's all in on it. But it's just, and of course, to me, again, the Han and Leia theme is, to me, one of the greatest romance themes of all time for me, because they're one of the first couples that I acknowledge as when I realized that, I'm into watching this type of stuff. I'm into watching romance between great characters. Even as a small child, I realized this is great. Han and Leia, this is awesome. They are my favorite couple. I think they're even like the first couple I ever understood as what romance is. They taught me what romance is.
I'm trying to think of another romance theme other than that one. I can't think of one.
Is there one?
In Star Wars? No.
No, in
anywhere.
anything.
Anything.
I cannot think of anybody else that has a romance theme song specifically for them.
That
Well,
is
I think
blasphemy, Dr. Lee. That's
Princess
blasphemy.
Bride has a
That's
theme.
not a theme. Oh my God, no, that's not a theme.
They have a good score when they're together, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I agree that Empire is probably the peak Williams in Star Wars because we get the Imperial March for the first time.
The Imperial March. And let's talk about the birth of the Imperial March theme. We go through the first 20 minutes on Hoth, where it's all our heroes and Luke with the Wampa and Han going out to rescue him, and then the probe droid arrives, and then the line. There's a good bet the Empire knows we're here, and then it cuts, and you see the Star Destroyer fleet just going through its paces, and then it begins the march, and you're what am I listening to? And then, as again, perfectly scored. You're thinking, okay, we're coming. If let's say you've only seen A New Hope, you're coming to this. Okay, we've seen Star Destroyers, these massive, giant wedge starships. What can beat these things? These things are huge. It swallowed up the Carillion blockade runner in the first movie. Millennium Falcon. Only thing bigger than that was the Death Star. And then the shadow passes over there, and bit by bit you see bigger shadow over multiples, and then it pans out, and then you get the first shot of the Executor, the Super Star Destroyer, the flagship of the Empire, Vader's ship. Oh, you're right, the Imperial March, and it's in full bloom at that point. And that's this is the beauty of this movie, and again, the groundbreakingness of this movie. In the last movie, and I'm going to build up this saying with the power of the Imperial March. Again, the music drives it. The last movie, our little band of heroes pulled it out against the giant doomsday weapon, the Death Star. They did it, and there were no other Star Destroyers there. It was great. They did it, pulled it off. And now in this one, it's been, I believe, you know what? Hang on. Let me get the exact number. Some douchebag criticizing for not getting my dates right with Star Wars the other day. Zero. It's been 3 years since A New Hope. Timeline wise, 3 years. It's been 3 years. So we haven't seen our heroes have been doing stuff. They've been running from the Empire, and the Empire has been hunting them down bit by bit. We know in Hoth they're barely hanging on there. They're lucky to be hiding. They're in the Outer Rim. This is so important in terms of taking our heroes down a notch. The Battle of Hoth. Done again, it's a mix of the Imperial March with and then it's a whole new track, but the Imperial March really comes into power once the battle is lost. To watch how much more powerful the Empire is at this point. I mean, Mustang, at the end of the first movie, you see this, you're thinking, all right, our heroes won this. They're going to do pretty well against this big bad. And then you watch Empire, and they get steamrolled in Empire. Is that fair?
No. It was a tactical retreat.
But they didn't have the fleet capacity.
I would say they got steamrolled. Like they barely. Yeah. It was tactical retreat, absolutely, but that was their only option. Yeah. Tactical retreat is you might be able to stay, but let's go back and rebuild. Right there, they're just like we run or we die.
Rogue Squadron gets decimated on the attack of Hoth. At the Battle of Hoth. Rogue Squadron gets decimated.
But we know it's a tactical retreat because they told us it was a tactical retreat. Their fleet was not there to defend them, so we knew there was more to come.
Even if it had been that, there were at least 4 Imperial class Star Destroyers and the Executor. No,
there was more than that. There was more than that. Behind the scenes, I remember they had showed 18 Star Destroyers plus the Executor. So we knew that there was a big fleet coming.
We said a fleet of Star Destroyers, but in the clips in the movie, you only see about 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
There might have been some victory classes there as well, because this is Vader's main fleet, because it's the Executor. This is the first, the first. I'll just call it the first Imperial fleet, because Vader, and that we'll get to. I want to talk about Vader soon too. I want to get.
Well, what they did right in it, and throughout all of it, the first 3, they got the scale right. They showed us how big things were, and that is something that God, I can't think of any show in the last 10 or 12 years that it's got scale right. Maybe the new Dune's getting it close, but nothing compares to Star Wars. Even thinking further back than that, they got scale right. They showed us how big things were.
Imposing,
Yes.
threatening, stakes. And again, the only reason they were able to retreat is because, yes, they were prepared for it with the ion cannon on Hoth. But without once the shield generator was destroyed, the ion cannon's done. And that's why I'm saying it was a steamroll, because when the AT-ATs, and yes, I say AT-ATs. Anybody can kiss my ass saying AT-ATs.
I'm with you.
If you don't say AT-AT, you're not a real fan if you don't say AT-AT. No, AT-AT. I've said AT-AT.
AT-AT sounds dumb.
I've said AT-AT my entire life. My entire life.
And they could call George Lucas dumb because that's how he called him too.
Thank you. Thank you. AT-AT.
AT-AT just sounds weird.
Because then you have to say AT-ST. I mean, it's
exactly. It's symmetry.
You know what I love?
It's like it rhymes.
When I was a kid, you miss things when you watch it, but then you watch Return of the Jedi and go back and watch Empire. I love that. I love a moment on the Battle of Hoth. We just see an AT-ST kind of just waddle by. I always like.
Remind me of a penguin.
Edition? Is that special edition or is that?
No, that's real.
Real.
That was theatrical. It always
original.
looked like it was not part of the scene to me. Even as a kid, it looked.
But it was there, and that's just
it was
like
bad.
AT-ST. It was there. Interesting fact: if you want to bring in some outside lore, do you guys ever play the game Empire at War? The strategic, it was one of.
I've seen pieces of it. Like
it was it was on sale for $6.99, both it and the expansion, the expansion pack for it. I should have gotten it. Maybe I'll get it next year. It was one of the best space strategy games I ever played, and it's Star Wars. Basically, you have the entire galaxy map, and you can build fleets, and you fly around, and you have fleet battles. It's incredible. I mean, think about this: the only way to take out a Star Destroyer is to have Y-wing squadrons take out the shield generators before you can do damage to it. That's how tactical you had to be in that. It's fantastic. Oh, I loved it. But it also had a ground component to it, where you have ground forces, and had a story component. And if you played the Imperial storyline, you were General Veers, as he was piloting or getting the prototype AT-AT into service and then deploying them for the first time on Hoth as a real thing. So the AT-ATs had only been in service, if you go by the lore established by that game, for a short time before the Battle of Hoth. Just fun, interesting thing, you know. I just always enjoyed that. But the AT-ATs are fascinating to me. But the Battle of Hoth, that's what I was saying. You realize the imposing nature of that moment when it's like that. As the rebels are looking through and they see these things march toward it, and they zoom in, and here come the AT-ATs. And it's all there is of the AT-ATs, and obviously there were clearly some AT-STs too, but they're just marching forward, and that's all there was. There were there's nothing else, because the troops are inside the AT-ATs, because they are the all-terrain armored transports. And Vader.
Is that what it stands for?
Yes,
yeah.
all-terrain armored transport. You don't realize. I was going to ask you if you knew that. I was going to ask you if you realize, because you realize.
What does ST stand for?
Algrim said in the chat, all-terrain scout transport. It's a scouting thing. It's only 2-man. But the AT-AT
never knew that.
And if you could also trade Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, which was a great Star Wars RTS game back in the early aughts. You would build AT-ATs, and you could load them up with dozens of stormtroopers, and you march them over to bases, then you drop them all out, and suddenly you've dropped 3 battalions of stormtroopers. You just lay waste to everything. It was great. But
for me, I haven't played a lot of good Star Wars games, like the classic Star Wars games, with the exception of my grandma had a GameCube game that was a fighter pilot one. It's like the predecessor to Rogue Squadron, and they had a level where you follow the X-Wings that are escorting the escape transports from Hoth. That level was always my favorite. You're going through a nebula as you're getting attacked by Imperial forces. I don't think it's canon, because it's just, it's just a flight simulator, basically, with combat, a dogfighting simulator. But yeah, dogfighting simulator in a nebula right after the events of the Battle of Hoth is great. I haven't played that game since I was a kid, but I always love that aspect of it.
I'm just going to bring this up real quick, and we'll talk about this more in 2 weeks is this is great nerd stuff. Right here, here's just some shots of Galactic Battlegrounds just to show what you could do. I mean, it was a straight up RTS game. It even had a game developer mode. I tried making personal EU campaigns for myself. Never finished them.
God, I remember that game.
This game, I mean, look, here's what you do. You have a squad of AT-ATs, and you just dump out. They just mow everything down. But then each one of these guys right here has something like 24 stormtroopers on them. So you march in there, you blow everything up, and then you just dump your troops out, and they just start blowing everything up. It's fantastic. It's great. This is a great game. I'll talk about this more. We'll talk more. We're definitely gonna talk more about games on Celebration Day. We're gonna talk.
You also have to take a look at the battle, and it was set up like a World War I trench battle.
Yeah.
Which,
well, that you bring up a great point. That thing they give you a great a pan of the rebels setting up, and they got gear, they got basically artillery towers, they got all their stuff, they're ready to go. And you think, okay, these guys are ready for this, they're gonna hold out. And then the AT-ATs just, and then when they get close enough, they dump the troopers, and Vader's shuttle lands, and then Imperial troops enter the base. No resistance, because like I said, they have retreated at that point, but it's just overwhelming, and you just watch with ease how they beat them up. And when the music shifts to the Star Wars theme, but it's a hectic Star Wars theme of dun 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 dun, but they're broken and they retreat, and at one point, one of the last members of Rogue Squadron, maybe it wasn't Rogue Squadron, I don't know how many squadrons were the speeders there, but one of them tries to go up against General Veers, his personal AT-AT, and I love that moment where the AT-AT just shifts and shoots the speeder in midair, out of the midair with its head. That always gets me. It's like, damn.
It shows how nimble yet how gigantic those things were.
Yeah. It's not just the head just moved, targeted, shot it down, and then boom, took out the generator. Again, but without the music, the subtle shifts of the hectic fight, the desperate fight, and even in the middle of it, when Luke goes down, and then he uses the grappling hook and cuts it open, throws a thermal detonator in there. Oh, okay. Jed, you probably did it. Mustang, did you ever play the NES version of Empire Strikes Back?
Oh, probably.
I rented that over and over again as a kid because I just wanted to see what Darth Vader looked like on the screen. That's all I really wanted to do. I wanted to get far enough game where I could see what he looked like as a video game sprite, but I never was good enough. But because I could never get past the Battle of Hoth in that, because in that one, the speeder versus AT-AT, the design was terrible, and you would always eventually crash, and then you're just Luke running around, and every once in a while, at a certain point, you get a chance to hit a button, and you see little Luke just run up in the distance to a walker. You see the line go up, and
that
see
was
him come
stick
back
figure
down.
Luke. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yes, I
and it would
remember that
fall
game.
over, and you could only do that so many times. I tried my hardest at that, as opposed to Super Empire Strikes Back on the SNES, which was a beautifully designed for the Battle of Hoth, where you could actually do the tow cable wind around on the walker legs. You had to actually steer the speeder to tie up the walker legs on Super Empire Strikes Back. It was so good. But
That's
that whole
something
battle,
else they got right. How do you bring down something that big? There's only one way: the legs. Well, they showed that your laser cannons aren't going to hurt that damn thing.
Yeah.
You had to bring it down with a cable. Everything's so good. Everything was so well thought out throughout the entire movie.
And then they even made it better. Once it was down, the speeder, which can't get high altitude, had the angle to shoot at the joint.
Yes.
On the neck, and that caused a chain of reaction explosion, and then you took it out that way. I mean, it's well orchestrated, well choreographed, well orchestrated visually, and then it's just. And this is what they do. This is the first time I bet I saw it, and why it is stuck so importantly, Jed, in terms of storytelling. In that moment, the end of the Battle of Hoth, this is the first time I've ever seen my main character groups split into different story directions. That was the first time I'd ever seen that. And I think that is why they must have imprinted on me, which is why I do it in stories eventually. After initial stories, why I splinter my main hero groups. Must be my
You
influence.
you talk about this a lot when we talk about stuff, but like the A story and the B story, what would you count in this as the A story and the B story?
You
Because
can't. I think they're equally A stories.
that's what I was gonna say. Because yes, the Luke stuff is incredibly impactful on the future of the franchise and his skill and whatnot. But I'd say the Luke part is actually smaller than the
It
Han,
is.
especially in immediate impact in action, in events, in changes, in character development. I think just a lot more happens in the Han storyline, but it's also less impactful to the sequel.
You bring up an incredible. You're guiding me right to one of my few criticisms of the movie, and this only comes about because we've had to look into it to push back against Disney stans who try to defend Rey. One of the failings of this movie, and please disagree with me if you want to, is that the movie does not do a good job of representing how much time has passed. Because you have to realize when the Millennium Falcon escapes from Hoth, they never go to light speed once. And they have to get all the way to Bespin on base star drive on sublight speed. That took weeks. They were running in high. I mean, the asteroid field was right on the edge of the Haas system, but they were inside. They after that, when they escaped the Imperial fleet and Boba is tracking them, that's a couple of weeks, I believe, is the exact number. Which
that makes sense. I mean, it should even be longer than that because Bespin would have to be at neighboring system for sublight speed.
It was a whole nother the NOAB system. I mean, NOAD.
It would have to be the system right next door if they're taking anything less than years.
Yeah, so they were going there for a long ass time, which means Luke was training with Yoda for weeks, if not months. And also, Luke, I think they failed to really understand that we're talking about time displacement. Time is moving different. It's not linear here. These are actions taking place in different parts of
that does
galaxy.
Help the movie. I mean, like help the continuity of it. Like you're saying, they did not translate that. I've never thought about this before. Even like once, I've never thought, this is taking place over months or weeks or anything. I've never once thought about that. But that does help because the main criticism that I saw of Empire Strikes Back that people were bringing up with Last Jedi was, Rey, she trained with Luke for a day and she got way more powerful. Luke did the same thing with Yoda. But no, if
he was there,
just like you're saying, he was there for months or something.
If
so
you
that's more explainable for his glow up.
If you understand that Han and Leia's journey took weeks to get to from Hoth to Bespin, all that adventure took weeks, and Luke was on Dagobah that whole time because it took him a couple days to get to Dagobah from Hoth, and then he was there. Because you look at Luke's abilities, and when he's escaping the Wampa, he can barely force telekinesis his lightsaber to his hand. But when he's fighting Vader, boom, gets it instantly and can even ignite it in midair. So I mean,
it's a big difference, yeah.
Yeah. He could do force leaps, he can do force speed, even though these special effects didn't really push it that hard during the lightsaber duel on Bespin. Luke displays force abilities. We'll talk about that when we talk about lightsaber because we have to talk about that, of course. But that's one of my few nitpicks is that the movie doesn't. It just kind of keeps going. It doesn't make you understand that and it didn't have to back in the day because it didn't face we didn't have to defend it against Disney Star Wars stands to show them how retarded Disney Star Wars is.
Jesus Christ!
What?
If Legatus is right. There's no way they should have made it to the Bespin system from Hoth at sublight.
Yeah, he's right. That's what I'm looking it up too.
Top
speed is Slave 1 is 1,000 kmph. So
well, here's the thing. No, Slave 1 necessarily didn't go with them. Boba Fett probably tracked them and knew the directory, and then went back to the fleet after that and report. And went
that's how they got there first.
Yeah.
Because they definitely got to Bespin first, according to Lando.
3 months,
But looking
that's
at it
what
here,
I've heard. Yeah,
we're probably looking at 3 to 6 months speed.
But that sublight, which means it's taking longer than a year. So if they're going sublight speed, that should take them over 2,000 years to make that
Well, maybe let's not say sublight speed. We don't know what that's one of the things.
It could be levels of speed.
Star Wars technology doesn't really give us it
No, it
messes
really
with physics. Star Wars physics is different than Star Trek physics.
It's sub-hyperspace. We
Yeah.
can go with that. That can explain it.
The Millennium Falcon can go fast enough because they had enough fuel to get there, so they made it. But it took them. Legatus brings up a point. I believe the estimation is a couple of months, so like 3 months. So Luke was on Dagobah training, doing hardcore training. I mean, that Yoda put him through his paces. And I think it also can say that because Luke is Luke, he's a bit of a prodigy to be able to pick it up so quickly at already.
It's still a lot better than Rey's single day.
And downloading. The download.
Okay, from everything I'm seeing, and I'm looking at 3 or 4 different websites right now, between 3 and 6 months. That would be a good explanation of, but then that begs the problem. We know already Han and Leia are having some serious emotional feelings to each other. What happened on the Falcon during that time?
Well,
Damn
you
it.
could. Well,
Did
again,
they fuck?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not yet, but there was. I don't think they would have.
Adam, be quiet. Leave me and Chet alone on this one. This is our this is our part of it.
But here's the thing. Here's why I say stuff had definitely gone on with their relationship, because when you get to Bespin and you cut to after 3PO's been shot by the stormtrooper, and Leia's complaining about it after Lucas had his Force vision, and we cut back to Bespin and she's had a clothes change and the hairdo change. They are so much more intimate with each other. The way he touches her and she doesn't flinch at all. It's been time. Now, I have never read the novelization of Empire Strikes Back. I read the novelization of the original, but I never read the novelization of Empire. So there may be more material in there so there is the intimacy is definitely grown at that point. Not to the point where they've said "I love you," because then we have the famous scene. But it's definitely it's just it all works though. If you understand if you put everything into place, then everything makes sense. Luke was there for months training, which is why and now if we take a little bit of prequel knowledge into account, we take that into account. Yoda is a master saber. He's a master saber wielder. He taught Luke how to properly duel, which explains why Luke can stand up to Vader. And so it all makes sense when
we've got to go back to Splinter as well, and everything we learned in Splinter.
I never actually read Splinter. It was one of those. It's always slipped through the cracks for me, and I never go back to do Splinter because it was EU canonized yet not EU canonized. Is it on the list?
You've got to read it because there is so much. That is Luke's training on Dagobah. That is really what Splinter is about, and that would explain why it seems like it's about a 6-month-long period. 3 to 6 months would be in that right area.
Okay, Splinter is on here. It is on here, but it happens before Empire.
Yeah,
I know. I know what you're saying, but I'm saying is
it is the bridge between. It shouldn't be before Empire. It should be during Empire.
Well, on the timeline here, it says before Empire, basically right before it.
Yeah, no, because it happened when Luke went to Dagobah, so it's during Empire.
Well, that's what Splinter has always been one of the things that EU aficionados are kind of 50-50 on, in my experience. It's never.
It's sanctioned by George, therefore it is canon.
But it's not said it's canon. It's never listed on required reading, though. I've never seen it listed as required reading by EU people. I've never put it on required reading. I never said it wasn't sanctioned. I'm just saying what I'm saying is just no one ever said you got to read Splinter to get this.
Splinter would end the argument that the fake Star Wars fans have of it. Splinter ends that argument.
Well, yeah. I'm not debating its quality. I'm just saying it's never been. I've never heard of Saber required reading. And just then, I would say, Shadows of the Empire is a great go-between Empire and Jedi. I say it's required reading, but a lot of people also don't, because you don't necessarily need it, because even though the events kind of explain why Luke is stronger by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, even though it's only been about a few months, it's only been about 6 months, it explains why he is able to do it, because he crystallized his use of the Force at that point. But
I love the novelization of Return of the Jedi. The only ones that I've done is Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith, because as a kid I wasn't allowed to watch Revenge of the Sith because it was PG-13. So reading the book was my only way of figuring out what happened. But Return of the Jedi, that scene where he builds his lightsaber, that should have been in the movie. I really wish that was in the movie.
Yeah, and they redid that in Shadows of the Empire. He builds his new lightsaber in Shadows because he's in Obi-Wan's old house, and he finds Obi-Wan's notes on how to craft an artificial kyber crystal. And that's when he builds it, and he has it, and he's using it in Shadows of the Empire, which is really cool. But you want my whole point, and Jed, you walked us right into this. Go great though. Now, if you take into account how the time works, then everything makes sense in the third act. It all makes sense in the third act.
It does help a lot.
Han and Leia's intimacy, Luke's strength to be able to fight Vader, and all of it. Then that's my one criticism. The movie that's one of my very few criticisms. The movie doesn't establish the passage of time. And how often do we complain about establishing passage of time?
It's an important thing.
But you know what? Back then we didn't care.
That's
nobody gave a damn about that back then. We didn't. Yeah. It was so good, nobody cared. None of the critics brought it up.
Yeah, it's overall, like with everything else in the movie, I would classify it as a minor criticism, but it's
but it's there. It
does exist.
It was in my head.
Legitimate.
It was in my head long before Disney Star Wars. It's always been a thing that's been on my mind, so that's why I can always say it's always been one of my small minor criticisms of the movie.
Even with my knowledge and my love for Splinter, it didn't bother me. Because I think maybe it was Splinter that I knew there was a big passage of time. And Splinter was a very popular book at that time, so maybe the fans, they even were like, "Yeah, we know what's going on here."
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Back then, though, there was no written timeline. We didn't have access to all the stuff. I mean, clearly, no internet, but you didn't have, and the books all didn't come with a timeline written in it like they do now. So
and movies weren't shit.
Well, yeah, and you were just happy to have it and having a good time. But either way, that's why it all makes sense. And all right, so we went off my favorite scenes, and Mustang, you said your favorite scene. Jed, what is your favorite scene in all this? Just to try and steer us in another direction here.
It's difficult for me to say. There's just so many classic ones, but I would have to go early on in the movie as well, just like you guys did as well, and just Hoth, the opening bit, where we established the new Han. I love how we established the new Han very quickly, because this is a very different character than New Hope. It makes sense. It's a clear transition. It's a clear transition between the two of them. We know how he got here. We know how Luke and Leia and the others affected him and his character transition. But he's still snarky. He's still the rogue. But the moment 3PO's like, "Hey, Luke is missing," he just snaps into gear and he is going out. He's sacrificing himself. He's ready to die looking for Luke. And that is not what we saw in A New Hope. It was at the end of the movie when he's like, "You know what? I might help. Maybe not sacrifice myself, but I'll try to help." In this one, he's like, "I'm willing to freeze to death for this man."
Hey, and then we get this.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Exactly. Well, overall with this entire movie, there's something I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I have a lot of different thoughts on this one because, as I've talked about in other streams, I haven't watched the original trilogy in years, since I was a teenager. Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, I haven't watched it since long before Rise of Skywalker, but those movies really killed my interest in Star Wars as a whole, as a brand.
Many other people.
I haven't watched hardly any Star Wars since then. And rewatching it as a kid, Empire was always unequivocally my least favorite of the original trilogy. Like, it was no competition. It was always kind of iffy between New Hope and Return. But
you know what?
Explain yourself, young man.
When I was a little kid, Jedi was my favorite. As I got older, Empire became my favorite.
That's what I'm transitioning to, is now that I'm a little bit more critical, now that I have better taste, Empire, I didn't realize how good it was. Like, I knew it was the GOAT. I know everybody loved it, but I always thought, hey, I like 4 and 6 way better than 5. But watching it this time, for the first time in my life, that's not true anymore. That is not true anymore. I liked it so much better this time. And I think as a kid, a little bit of the dark aspect of it didn't work well for me. The darker tone, the lack of a happy ending. Like I was a kid. I had simple taste. But now that I can appreciate what it was trying to say, what it was trying to set up, what it was trying to do, I appreciate it a lot more. It seems way more valuable to me. So I'm happy to say Empire was probably my favorite Star Wars movie. I have to rewatch Return of the Jedi next week. I have to redo that before I can make a firm statement on that, because I haven't watched Return since back when I was a teenager either. Okay. But I'm pretty confident in saying that Empire might be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Which Return are you going? You're going to watch the original Return, right?
I just don't want him to say no. That's the only version I care about. Is
that's why that's why, and I have to make a correction. This is actually I was thinking about, we're talking about this. This is actually Special Edition 2.0 because it has a redubbed Boba Fett line in it. But that's just to bet, because this is the one that was redubbed after prequel. But
with
that's
Tamora Morrison.
Yeah, it's got Tamora Morrison dubbed in there. But the version I have over here, this is also 2.0 because it has Hayden at the end of it, but it doesn't have no.
I don't want Hayden.
It doesn't have no.
I don't want Hayden either.
We'll talk about that next week. That's discussion for next week.
Yeah. But, the original special edition was all right though, right?
Original special edition did not have Hayden. Original special edition did not have Hayden.
That's the version I'm going to look for then.
Okay, because this is 2.0 because Hayden's at the end of it, but original special edition, and I'll just again, I don't want to spend too long on Jedi. We can talk about this week. Original special edition of Jedi changes are the Slice Doodle scene that's changed to make the more music video type thing. The Sarlacc, and then in the original edition, the ending credits. They change
the new song.
They go from Yub Nub to the new song, and they do the cutscenes of all the
prequel planets. I don't mind that.
That was before the prequels came out, though. Well, just one.
Ooh.
No Naboo, but they cut
Naboo.
the Coruscant. In the original special edition, they didn't do Naboo. They just did Coruscant, and they did Bespin and Tatooine. But in this one, they put Naboo on it in 2.0. Naboo is in there, but that's it. And then, of course, in 2.0, you have Hayden at the end. But original one only had those cutscenes, only those changes, and it was original old man Anakin Force Ghost at the end.
Okay, I got to ask both of you, because I'm going to say it with Empire. For me, it being dark really made it better. Now I know.
Oh, I agree now.
Well, you were obviously older than I was the first time you saw it. The first time I saw it, I was still a child. So I think for you, it was probably you were more attuned to it to comprehend what was going on.
Yeah, I definitely was. I was just wondering, because Jed, how old were you when you saw it?
I don't remember. I was 6.
Okay,
5.
So
when I was a kid, all I know is that when Luke had a green lightsaber, my favorite color being green, that was just, I was so drawn to that with Jedi. I believe it was my 5th birthday cake. My 5th birthday cake. It was the icing design were Luke and Vader's sabers crossed.
Love it.
When in the beginning of the fight of the throne room. Now the Emperor wasn't there because they weren't going to make Palpatine's face behind it, but it was just the green saber, the red saber crossed. I remember that so vividly. So that the Jedi had all the things that all the pop that I liked as a kid, but as an adult, just the greatness of Empire, how the story just manages to splinter in 2 directions and then come together and have everything matter, and these characters and all these characters come together in these fantastic moments.
I've been thinking, since you brought that up, was there a movie before Star Wars that did that?
That's why I asked that. That's what I said.
I'm sure it's happened, but it mainstreamed it. That's for sure.
Yeah, but the whole splintering of your main party group to tell 2 different plots. I mean, it's great. And I love it. And it made me, and I've always said this, Han Solo, my favorite character. I love Luke Skywalker, but Han is my favorite character. And this movie solidifies it because he gets the girl. He's snarky. He has hero moments. Everything about Han in this is great, especially the dialogue. That's one of the things that Empire hits better than New Hope and Jedi. The character interactions. The Empire lines are the classic lines everybody repeats.
Yes, absolutely.
It's it. And how's this? How's this for the? Did you realize that Leia on Bespin when Luke is when Lucas first arrived and they put away, she's the first one that says it's a trap. She coined the phrase.
She coined
not
the phrase.
Akbar.
That's true.
Leia coined the phrase. It's a trap.
Well, and as a world builder yourself, Adam, with your books, you might disagree with me, but I want to see your perspective. I think Empire was the most world building of the 3 original trilogies.
Yes.
And
because
especially with the
so
Jedi.
Many different worlds.
Yeah, with the different worlds, and especially with what we learned about the Jedi. Like in Return of the Jedi, I don't feel like we learned a whole lot about like how Jedis are supposed to act that we didn't in Empire.
Mm-hmm.
In New Hope, we knew practically nothing. We knew they had laser swords and could do mind powers. But in this one, it's like we control our emotions. This is how we train. This is how we do this. This is different techniques. Like the Yoda stuff really helped the world build Jedi as a concept. And we got the Emperor for the first time. We got to see the Empire's inner workings with Vader interacting with his subordinates. Like, I just feel like Empire, maybe of all 6, it might be the most world building.
It is. You're right, because we went to more worlds than ever before in Star Wars.
Here's why it is, too. There was, the merch was everywhere. There was
merchandising.
Oh, God, there was not just the lunch boxes and those things, but there were books, comics, there were
many toys.
Yeah, there was so much going on that the world building had to be put in there to sell the merch.
Yeah, and that's how George made his millions.
Yeah. and that is the pure genius of this. The Toys That Built America, a good series. I think it's on History. It was on a few weeks ago talking about this and how they were trying to catch up with the craze of Star Wars for Empire, and all the merchandise that was going on and being brought out. It was insane. I remember it.
I mean, the AT-AT as a toy.
I broke 4 of them.
I had one, and to my shame, I didn't break it. But at some point when I had grown out of playing with it, first of all, I would take its legs off because they looked like maces, and I would use them as weapons. They looked like maces.
They did.
So I would take the legs off. But at one point, it made a way out to a pool house, and it lived there. And it got so grody, my mom had to throw it out because I just left it out there at one point when I was playing in this ratty ass pool house at my stepdad's house. But the AT-AT was a massive thing, and the original Falcon was massive. I mean, these toys they redefined toys.
Okay, everything was big when we were kids, but I want to say the original AT was probably 2.5 feet tall.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was huge. The AT-AT, yeah, I'll bring it up. I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, it took me 4 M80s to blow one of them up.
Oh my God. What's the matter with you? I mean,
he was attacking Luke. I blew that sumbitch up.
I just played hard with it, and then as I got older, I turned it into a different type of toy. But I mean,
I had access to explosives. I was using them.
God, horrible.
Dude, you should see what I did with bottle rockets and things. I had laser cannons for real.
Man, is this I don't know which one of these is the original one.
I can tell you.
Well, I know this is the original. This is the original AT-ST. I know because of the action figure with it right here. I know this is the original AT-ST because I destroyed my AT-ST. I beat the living hell out of that.
Legatus, you forgot underwear and underoos.
Let's see. No, that's not. That's the Micro Machine miniature I had.
Yes,
I love
that's not it.
Those were great.
That ain't it.
That ain't it. Yeah, that ain't it. Look, because it has that. What's that? What is that? That's
that's not it.
No, the original just had the opening. It just had the flap, and it was empty inside.
And it was big, and the gun. The only thing is the turns on the side actually worked.
Yes, I think this is it. This is it.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, and you put batteries in it, and it would move. The turrets on the front would move. You put batteries in it. Yeah, this thing was this. Look at that. You could see how big it was. It was great.
Yeah, it's that's 6-inch baseboard, so yeah, about 2 feet tall.
Look at that.
I never had any good Star Wars tours. I had some Legos, but that was it.
the original toys were fantastic, dude. They were.
And this guy I've had since I was a kid. Here, I've got a Empire Han.
Oh, have you heard my story about Empire Han? Hoth Han? No, that's Empire Han. Hoth Han. Have I ever told you guys this story?
I don't think so.
All right, here's the thing. So when I was a kid, and I'll probably tell this story again on Thursday in 2 weeks. When I was a kid, there was still Empire merch out, but it was all Return of the Jedi merch when my parents started buying me the stuff. So I got a lot of Jedi merch. So I never had Empire Han, but I never had Hoth Han either. And when I was in school in Jersey as a kid, in Mrs. Luzio's English class.
Way to dox her.
I don't give
Wait
a
a minute,
fuck.
was
If
she
she's
Italian
even
by
still alive,
Indian?
she was an evil bitch. If she's even still alive, she can kiss my ass. Evil bitch. I would sit there and some point years before, people had made dioramas and they had given to her and they kept. And on the top shelf, on the far left side of the room, there was a diorama of something. I don't know what the hell it was, but inside the glass was a Hoth Han action figure, an original Hoth Han action figure, just in there. And whether I was in detention, because that's where detention was held, in her room, and I was there a few times, or in class, I can't tell you how many times I would try and fantasize a way that I could break in and steal that action figure. I wanted that Hoth Han so badly, because this is mid 80s. They didn't re-release action figures. Once they were gone, they were gone. They didn't make them anymore. You were lucky to have the original batches you got. That's why, again, my mom tells the story. We went to the beach in Long Island one day when I was like 4 or 5, and I brought a bunch of figures with me. Yeah, I lost about 6 or 7 stormtroopers in the sand.
You have told this story before.
Yeah, I told that one. But I used to try and get I used to fantasize, how can I get, is there any way I could steal that action figure out of there? That's Hoth Han. He is in there. He doesn't belong there. He belongs in my collection at home, or I can play with him. That's what I would think. Of course, I never actually broke into it, but to me, that was a crime against a great action figure, to be stuck in there. All right, I want to wait till Mustang gets back to go to the next part. But so, Jed, looking at this as you do now, you can really appreciate the different moving parts of this movie, and and how it takes time to grow the relationships of everybody. And retconning aside, we have to retcon a couple lines here and there because of the prequels, but you can do it. It doesn't hurt that hard. It's usually everything concerning Yoda. It's all about Yoda. It's all Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Yep, like the Jedi who trained me.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, Lucas, he padded that enough in the prequels, basically having everybody call everybody master.
Yeah.
Okay? That's your workaround. But the whole, well, just everything about there's another. No, there is another. Well, we saw Obi-Wan knows Leia's alive. I mean, and he knows that. We talk about real Star Wars, not Disney Star Wars.
Of course,
Obi-Wan was there at their birth, and because they were rescuing her on the Death Star,
and he helped decide what happened to her.
Yeah, and he knows that because she was on the Death Star, she wasn't on Alderaan when it blew up. So he knows they alive. So for him to say that boy's our last hope and not know that Leia also exists. And he's a Force ghost at that point. He has omnipotence. Then he knows everything going on.
Yeah. Did he ever know that Leia was on the Death Star? Because I thought he broke off before they got the reporting.
Because he knows that she was captured on.
Well, no, he got the message that she's in trouble, and then the Death Star. They don't know that the Death Star is what caused all that. And he broke away from the group before Luke saw Leia's in the cell.
You're right.
The only scene that I could see his argument is when they all ran into the Falcon and Ben's fighting Vader, and he looks over and sees Luke. He might have seen her climb into the Falcon.
Even if you use that as your only point of evidence, the fact that she was captured means she's not on Alderaan when it blows up. Because
Are we having the discussion whether Ben knew Leia was on the Death Star?
Yeah. We're talking about
I can settle it for you real quick. Yes.
Well, hold on. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're just saying that.
How did he know she was captured? The message
because
wasn't, "I'm
we
been
have to, yeah, the
captured."
you have to rescue her. What Obi-Wan says, she needs you in A New Hope. I need you and she needs you, which so Obi-Wan knows she's
Right, they're
alive.
going to her, but the message is, "I need your help. Here are the Death Star plans." But she doesn't say,
Yeah,
"I've
but
been
if
captured."
R2 and 3PO just crash landed from the
It's
battle
easy
over
assumption. It's an obvious assumption, but it's not.
or conversations that would happen. And so,
Yeah.
I mean,
he could censor on the
and
Death Star if
he
nothing
would have,
else.
and take these to my father on Alderaan, which means she's not on Alderaan when it blows up.
Yeah.
So Obi-Wan should know that Leia's alive, based upon prequel evidence, which we have to use after the fact, of course, and even New Hope evidence, because by the time Empire is written, Lucas decided that Vader was Anakin and that Luke and Leia were brother and sister. He decided that, even though he let the kiss happen. That's why he cut out. I saw this recently. I hadn't seen this before. A scene where she's all handsy with Luke, a deleted scene. That's why he probably cut that out. I was like, yeah, that's going to go too far. The kiss is one thing because she doesn't know and she's doing it to make Han jealous. But the handsy thing would have been a little too much. So, all right, Mustang, what were you going to say?
Okay. He did not know where Leia was. Nobody knew because she could have been off doing anything. He knew she was part
You're right.
He
You're
knew
right.
that.
Because Luke
here's
says
how
she's
here's
here.
how he knew. He, like Vader, when Vader found out, was able to sense it.
Yeah, if it's sensing, then that's fine.
It was a force sense because Ben was there when they were born. Ben could sense it. He knew she was there, but he had to be within proximity. So probably when they got behind the TIE fighter going to the Death Star, Ben probably sensed it. Knew at that point. He's like, "Oh crap!" He can sense it. He knew she was near. That's when it would happen. But Adam brought up the point. George didn't even know it at that point.
Yeah. George, that's why George had worked out a lot of stuff, but he hadn't worked out fine-tuned things. That's why Obi-Wan calls him Darth. He hadn't figured that part out yet. He hadn't figured out Sith yet versus Jedi. That's why there's a lot of little. That's why he hadn't figured out that Anakin wasn't blood related to the Lars. You know, that's why those conversations require a little retconning and New Hope. We had those discussions last year. But I mean,
this is a great reason. This is why those people who are trying to go Rey and Disney Star Wars, they can never do it because George didn't know at that point.
Yeah.
He had to write the history as he went.
Yeah. And I mean, by Empire, he knew what was going to happen by Jedi. He knew what was going to happen in Jedi by the time he finished Empire. He knew at that point completely. And he always had the skeleton sketch of the backstory, Mustafar. He didn't know it was Mustafar, but he knew it happened. Hell, I swear when I was a kid, for a long time, I thought Vader didn't fall in lava or got burned. I thought he fell in acid. I swore I read someplace when I was a little kid that it was acid. For years, I thought that until something proved me wrong. And it was, no, he got burned, not by acid. That was just that was a little kid thing. I don't know where I saw it. And here's all the thing. Other thing. I thought also that when you get that, and I was waiting until you got back, Mustang, I want to shift to Vader. I want to talk Vader in this now. When you get that first look at the back of his head in his meditation chamber, when then Admiral Piet comes in, I didn't know that was the result of Mustafar. George already knew, but I didn't know. And in my mind, going forward for years before I had that laid out for me, when I got older and I learned about all that stuff that in supplementary material that was going to eventually become the prequels, I thought that was that his machine bought on that. I thought that because the Emperor's teaching had been so harsh that he got hurt as a little kid. That was what my little kid headcanon put together.
Nobody knew it.
Well, yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking about all the books that I read back then, and there was speculation all over the place about why Darth looked like that, because that scene was a shock. Even the media, and I'll never forget it. We were watching, I think it was E.T. or something similar to that. And my dad is a giant sci-fi fan, and he's like, the first things out of his mouth is he got burned. He said napalm or something like that. Well, my dad was fresh back from Vietnam at the time, so I mean that would make sense to them, and so to us. But it was shocking because there was Vietnam vets that had just been burned that were seeing that, going, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And if George was not inspired by some of those pictures, I would be just completely shocked.
We know he was. And real quick, I have no idea what you're talking about, JB. I had a ton of Star Wars trading cards as a kid. Like, we're talking stacks of red and blue border trading cards. I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about. I really don't. I have no idea what you're talking about.
JB does point out in something important. James Bond had sequels before Empire.
Loosely tied sequels, very and nothing. Very rarely information referenced from the first one.
Yeah, they had character continuations, but not story continuations.
Yeah, only in it was only in From Russia with Love, you get a couple references to Dr. No. But after that, it's kind of just loose connections. Like Spectre's a thing. Bond at that point knows that Spectre isn't Thunderball. He and you few references there, and you don't even reference the death of his wife again until License to Kill, and that's a different actor at that point. So I mean,
it did happen. Like even John Wayne, he did a True Grit and then Rooster Cogburn.
But
So
you could watch those separately.
Yeah, just like what we're saying, they're character continuations, they're not story continuations.
Yeah. So it's and you could say again, Jaws carries over from Spy Who Loved Me to Moonraker, but then that's a character thing. Jaws was still just another hired. He came back as a hired thug, a goon. Not not the same story. So it's Star Wars redefined sequels. In fact, it is the birth of what sequels are today. Sequels exist now because of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
The only sequels that we could really go on were retread of the original theme: Rio Lobo, Rio Hondo, Rio Bravo. Come on, it's the oldest joke there is, the Rio series. They're all the same movie. I mean,
but
Jed loves westerns. Would you deny
Vader.
it?
I want to talk Vader now.
You got to go back to Hoth to talk about Vader in this one.
Well, we're starting in the very beginning. I'm starting at the very beginning. So Vader is, at this point, we had this discussion last year. What was the chain of command in the Empire last year? Clearly the Emperor. He, at the beginning of A New Hope, he has just dissolved the Imperial Senate. So there's nobody, and he's turning over the control of different regions to the different governors who are the Moffs. And at top of the Moffs was Grand Moff Tarkin. He was the top of the food chain. So you had Palpatine, Tarkin, Vader. Because Vader, he didn't so much do Tarkin's bidding, but we know he respected Tarkin. Even as and we can use Clone Wars. Jed can attest to this, where it reaffirms Anakin's respect in Clone Wars for Tarkin. So he did that just got reaffirmed there. So Vader, Tarkin was higher rank politically, but Vader is a Sith Lord. And if you go back to Old Republic lore, the Sith and the Imperial navies were always separate. But if the Sith wanted to put in jurisdictional control, they could override officers.
They can override everybody.
Yeah. That's back when we're talking Sith Empire, when there were thousands of Sith. That's why I love the Old Republic.
We didn't have the lore back then, but I was to say, if we were to go off of EU and what we know today, it would have been the Emperor, Vader, Thrawn, and then the Moffs.
Yeah, but Vader would run ramshot over a regular Moff, but he let Tarkin take the lead because it was Tarkin, and he was top of the food chain on that thing.
Tarkin had his respect.
Yeah, that was the thing, and like I said, second, and Jake can confirm this. In the Clone Wars, they took time to reaffirm Anakin always liked Tarkin.
Yep.
So, but once Tarkin was gone, there was another Grand Moff, and even though there were Grand Admirals, of course, this is later lore coming in. Vader as a Sith Lord outranked everybody, and as soon as he appears, and I love the way Vader enters the movie. After we go back, we're talking about the Imperial March, the fleet, the Executor. You see him; he's just standing there, hands behind his back, observing the fleet. His pride and joy at this point, I think, one of his prides and joy. And when you hear Piet and the Admiral who gets aced very soon talking about we've discovered something, as Vader walks over, all you see you just see his legs and everybody looking up like, oh shit, he's on the move. Oh shit. And then he asks what's going on. And when they figure it out, and then suddenly when he goes, that's it. And it just cuts to full Vader helmet and you're boom, there he is. his presence is felt immediately, and it's so much even more than it was in New Hope. He's the presence. He is bad guy, and you love it.
That scene was directly inspired by Ahab on the bridge.
I can see that.
It could be called the admiral overseeing everything, but it was Ahab on the bridge. I remember George did an interview with somebody, and they said, "Where did he get?" He goes, "Oh, it's Ahab when he was standing there. His command of everything." And I was like, I don't remember that from the show, but from the book, yeah, there was that scene in the book.
It's a long time since I read Moby Dick. Long ass time.
It's a long ass book.
It's one of those things they made you read in school, and I wasn't happy to do it. But you have that, and then the subsequent scenes pre-Battle of Hoth, where Vader is in complete control. When he chokes out the Admiral, I still can't remember his name. I got too many names still around my head. When he chokes him out without even lifting it, Admiral Ozzel. Thank you, Algrim. Admiral Ozzel. Thank you. You have failed me for the last time, Admiral. What I love about that is in the first movie, and this always thing is that I feel like Vader is even stronger in Empire than he was in A New Hope, because in the first movie, when he chokes out that commander on the Death Star, he goes like this. But in Empire, he doesn't need to be in the physical presence. He's looking through a monitor. And he doesn't even lift the hand. He's just sitting there and he just chokes him with a thought. And to me as a kid, I thought, wow, he's even stronger than he was in the last one. And you realize he means nothing. And then, of course, he chokes out everybody. And that begins the meme that goes through Star Wars. And it makes it into the EU, where Vader ruled through fear, not respect, when it came to the fleet. And he would brook no failure. The only person that survived failing was Piet. He got demoted to captain from admiral between Empire and Jedi. Because I think the only reason Vader didn't kill him is because Vader was at odds with himself after Luke escapes Bespin. I want to answer Jen Hamilton's question real quick right now. As soon as Luke became famous for destroying the Death Star.
So then why does he act surprised when the Emperor tells him it is the son of Skywalker?
But he's hunting Luke at this point.
Well, he's hunting the rebels.
But he's hunting... Luke is famous at this point.
Right, yeah. He's still hunting a famous rebel and the rebels in general. But
being dead, though, that's the thing.
Because the Emperor started looking into... For lack of better words, the Emperor started putting his feelings out, saying, "Who is this kid?"
Yeah,
and he can detect the sense.
I always thought it was the Emperor who told Vader for the first time that Luke was his kid.
Yes,
and I mean, it should be pretty obvious, especially if you've seen the prequels. It's like, where did this kid come from? Oh, he came from Vader's uncle's house. Maybe it's his kid.
Well, you got to realize one of the things you got to go back in time and realize that Vader never set foot on Tatooine.
Well, right, no, Vader not knowing Luke exists on Tatooine, that's fine. But I mean, when the Emperor is like, "All right, who's this kid? Oh, his name's Luke. He's from Tatooine, and he lived with Owen."
The name's Skywalker. He's running around Skywalker. I mean, it was common knowledge after the Battle of Yavin that Luke Skywalker blew up the Death Star. That's common knowledge.
That's true. Why does Vader sound so surprised? He's like, "Oh, who blew up the Death Star? Luke Skywalker." Say what now, bitch?
Well, I think it's more along the lines of he's been well, see, that's why he wants that's why he wants to capture the Falcon and Han and Leia so badly, because he wants to use that to lure Luke. Even from that, he's trying to do it from the whole beginning of the movie. I think he might be playing dumb with the Emperor a little bit.
I could see that.
Because let's skip to during the asteroid thing when we'll talk about this now, the whole conversation with Palps in this. Now the original there is story, of course. I've known this lore my whole life. You and Mustang, I'm sure you know this one, that the original conversation with the Emperor, of course, it's two different people in there. it's a woman in the hologram.
I knew that.
You know, yeah, but it's a dude doing the voice. Jimmy, look now. At this point, we didn't know that the Emperor was a Force user up until this moment, because Vader is now subservient to him. He's bending the knee. Vader didn't bend the knee to Tarkin. We heard the Emperor once in A New Hope when we heard he dissolved the Senate. We hadn't heard anything about the Emperor until now. And now, here he is right there, and we learn this is Vader's master, which has to tell you he's Force sensitive, and he's a powerful, well, again, common...
Not at the time.
Not at the... Well, you would kind of put 2 and 2 together. At least I did when I was a kid, before Jedi. Well, what am I saying? I saw them at the same time, so I can't make that argument. But during the conversation, hang on. Wait. I don't have it because I'd have to load it up, but because when they wrote Shadows of the Empire, they used the original script from original cut.
Right.
And because this is also why this is that's all why this is 2.0, because they have Ian McDiarmid, Emperor, in this one as well. But I'm going to ask you guys about that in a second now. But you have the original cut, and here's the original conversation. We'll use that because in the prologue of Shadows of the Empire, it's from Prince Shizor's point of view, where he's with the Emperor while the Emperor is talking to Vader on the Executor during Empire Strikes Back. That's why it's so cool. And he says right there, what is thy bidding, my master? There's a great disturbance in the Force. The Emperor says there's a great disturbance in the Force. It's his first line. So that tells you he's a Force user right away. It tells you Force user. Vader, I have felt it. We have a new enemy, Luke Skywalker. So right there.
Right there should have told Vader.
Yes, Vader just says, yes, my master. That's all he says. Yes, my master. He could destroy us, says the Emperor. Vader says he's just a boy. Obi-Wan could no longer help him. So if you go by the original script, I think they change it. They change it in 2.0 here. They alter the conversation slightly. But in the original conversation, Vader is completely aware that Luke is out there. He's completely aware by the original text here.
Yeah, Vader should have been aware, but yeah, that kind of would mess up with the movie a little bit too.
Which one? What do you mean?
I'm thinking ahead to Return of the Jedi.
No, it all lines up. Discussion for next time.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've read that one.
But that's the thing. So by the original text right here, because this is line for line, the original conversation from the original movie, original cut. It was clear Vader knew to answer. So Vader's known since probably within a year of the Battle of Yavin. Vader knew. So Vader knew. Anyway. So, but that conversation, let's talk about that. So, now they change it. They add a lot more to Special Edition 2.0 because they give Ian McDiarmid a whole lot of screen time in that conversation, and they add a couple things here and there, but it's still essentially the same conversation. Do you feel the change ruins anything, or is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
No, it's fine. Okay.
I don't mind it at all. I think the look is a little rough. It's got the Revenge of the Sith Palpatine.
No, it's prequel.
Look.
It's prequel Palpatine.
That's what I'm saying. Is it's got Revenge of the Sith.
Oh yeah.
Palpatine, not Return of the Jedi Palpatine.
Yeah,
so it doesn't look as good as it could, but I still rather Ian McDiarmid do it.
Yeah, I don't mind the change because to me it lines everything up properly. It keeps its consistency. That's why I'm okay with it in the end. I don't mind that change in version 2.0 because in 1.0 it was the original conversation.
I just rewatched that original scene real quick, and yeah, there's no doubt Vader knew who it was.
Yeah,
the Emperor knew who it was, no doubt.
Yeah.
So yeah, this actually it puts more credence into Return of the Jedi because they're trying to turn it, but with the rule of 2. would mean Vader's got his.
Well, let's be honest. When we could talk about this, I want to save that. I want to talk about the rule of two a lot next in 2 weeks. The Sith are real lenient with the rule of two, especially because Star Killer is canon. Star Killer exists in canon. So Vader, every apprentice will always have a secret apprentice.
Yeah.
I mean, how many apprentices? Palpatine had 3 apprentices.
3 or 4.
Don't tell
at least
me
3.
Don't tell me he wasn't training. He wasn't using Dooku while Maul was running around.
Oh, don't we know that it's a fact?
Yeah, we know that for a fact.
Yeah. So rule of two, and maybe Palpatine really fudged it because he's at the end game right there. There, he's at the moment where it's all going to come together. So he's got redundancies all in place. But and Dooku's using Asajj Ventress. He's using Ventress.
True.
As an apprentice. And don't tell me Palpatine know about that. And then
well, I think Palpatine was playing the game because he knew what was coming.
Well,
he had to have enough.
Palpatine was the grand master of this whole thing. That's kind of what makes it really cool, is that no matter what, he wins.
Yeah.
And no matter what, he turns Anakin into Vader. And but I want to save that discussion. I want to talk. That's a great discussion for 2 weeks from now. But
JB's got a good question.
Where?
Chat.
Where? Who asked this question?
JB.
It's a prequel question.
Oh
yeah. Yoda.
It was Yoda. Hide the boy. Put the boy with his family. You will. So that was Yoda's big brain idea. Hey, listen. Again, I will criticize Yoda. Yoda. Everything fell apart under Yoda's watch.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? That was a brilliant idea. Hide him in plain sight.
Well, on the outer rim. Well, again, Yoda. A lot of things broke down for Yoda, but I think we even had this discussion last year where put him in the one place Vader wants to go nowhere near, Tatooine. That is a blind. I believe I've made this argument.
Put him anywhere near sand. That's was Leia's big mistake. Is she didn't go near sand.
But Tatooine is a blind spot for Vader. It's a blind spot. He
would avoid news from that place. He would just, I can
his the death of his mother, his history there. He would not want to go near there.
I still would have changed Luke's name, try to at least pretend that he was Owen and Beru's kid. That would be the only thing I'd change. Like, otherwise, it's a pretty sound idea.
Vader didn't even go there when he needed the droids. He let others go look for him.
He stayed up on the Star Destroyer.
Yeah, he did not want to touch Tatooine.
And then technically, he left immediately. Once he had Leia, he left immediately. Went to the Death Star to Tarkin.
Yeah, probably at hyperspeed 5 million. He doesn't want anything to do with it.
There were still 2 Star Destroyers in orbit around Tatooine when the Millennium Falcon blasts out of there.
Right, and none of them was Vader.
And Vader's Star Destroyer effed off to the Death Star.
Since we're talking about New Hope and Tatooine, I don't know if I mentioned this last year when we talked about A New Hope, but was I the only one who, for about 10 years, had no idea that Dantooine and Tatooine were different? I figured it was like Lando saying Han wrong. It's just,
okay, there's my other. You just walked into my other small criticism.
Carrie Fisher is just saying Tatooine like an idiot. I just thought that's what it was for 10 years.
No, it's just
I had no idea they were.
It was George didn't know what to do.
You just walked into my other small criticism for this movie. Everybody calls Han for the first 2 acts. Then suddenly here comes Lando, calls him Han, and Leia's calling him Han. The rest of the movie is like, what are you doing?
And so does 3PO. 3PO calls him Han as well.
3PO calls him. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Now, when I read a Star Wars novel and Lando's there, in my mind, he calls him Han. But everybody else calls him Han. So
they tried to explain that in the Solo movie, and it pissed me off. He did it as to insult him.
Oh, fuck that.
He's like, I don't respect you enough to get your name right. And then it became a joke.
But I could see Billy doing that.
Like, it's in isolation, that's a good enough explanation, but still, it's in the Solo movie.
But they've never, the actual actors, they've never come out and said where that came from. And you just have to.
You know what it is? It's the charisma of Billy D.
Yeah, it really is.
Billy D. Handing out Colt 45s and saying, hey, let's have some fun.
I love it.
God,
But
he was
yeah,
great.
no, I had to be told that like when I was 13 or 15 or something like that. That it's like, oh yeah, she's going to Tatooine. No, Dantooine's different. It's like
Hey, Lyle Hammock, if you're still
I
here.
had no idea.
Yeah, so that's my other small criticism because it drives me nuts. Drives me nuts.
It would be
every time.
fine without Leia and 3PO
Yeah.
adding in.
We're on our way to save Han from the bounty hunter. It's like, no, what are you doing, 3PO? You're a goddamn droid. Why would you do that? Anyway,
A
back to
linguistic droid at that.
yeah. You're back to
Maybe
Vader.
he's malfunctioning at that point. He's in pieces.
Back
Okay,
to Vader.
Kicked him in the nuts.
The duel on Bespin is when Vader on Bespin in general is just even though it's so intermittent, it's some of the greatest imposing presence of all time. Here now, tell me if you guys have ever felt like this. Right before when Lando betrays everybody and leads them to the dining room. Has anybody else ever wanted one more scene of that dining room of everybody in there?
Oh God, yes.
Absolutely. Just the awkwardness of it. And in my head, it's even funnier because Leia's his daughter. So I imagine it's Han meeting the in-laws for the first time.
Not knowing.
I know, but it's like dinner with the dad.
I mean, everything. We would be happy. We would be honored by your presence if you just come in here. And I love it at that moment. And this is just a badassery of Han. Door opens, the reflexes, blaster out, boom, boom, boom. Vader, yeah, block, force whip. Sorry.
Do you think Vader respected him for that? Because he just said, "I'd be happy if you joined us." He doesn't like he doesn't get him off like, "Damn boy, you got balls."
I think Vader respected that kind of shit. I think he would. It's just like
I feel like he would too. Yeah.
Which is why then later on he tortures him and never asks him any questions. You shot at me. Now I'm just going to torture you for the hell of it because I'm a sick bastard at this point. But I always want to know what's going on. And I've always wanted more of that scene. I want that dining room scene just to hear the conversation. It's just I love it.
Banquets.
You have a thing for banquets. You want
Dude, I'm
those
still
banquets.
pissed. I am so pissed.
You want those banquet scenes.
I want the damn banquet scenes. They mean a lot.
Yeah, Vader totally did respect that.
I
agree.
Well, here's the whole thing with the torture aspect that I got out of it at the time. Vader was trying to lure Luke in. He had to create enough pain so that Luke would sense it and come to try and save them. He wanted Luke.
Yeah, well, it's all about getting Luke. And then, but every single reaction, Vader's lines on Bespin are some of the best. I mean, where is it?
Well, there's one big one that's happening right now on iFunny. I know you guys aren't on there, but it's overtaken the app. You know, when he says, "I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further."
You mean this right here?
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Exactly. But people made a meme of it where he says, "I've rotated the meme. Pray don't rotate it any further." And people just have the meme at weird angles.
That's pretty good.
And so like it's full of that. You're just like, oh, it's at 180 degrees now. Jesus. There's a lot of them right now.
Vader,
I've changed the contrast on it and they just changed the contrast. So dumb.
But everything about Vader on Bespin, and when you get to fight all his lines, he's just in complete control. No one could stop him. And
he never breaks a sweat. Like he's just calm.
He only becomes frazzled in the final moments with the duel. Get to that.
When he gets hit.
Well, I want to talk about even that final arc about. Well, I'm building towards the duel. I'm building towards the duel. In the carbon freeze chamber. That whole scene. That's my second favorite scene. Iconic line aside, everything about that, the placement of all the characters, the movement, the music, the combination of Han and Leia's theme with the Imperial March,
the lighting,
it's and the exchanges, all perfect. And here's one thing: in 2011, 2012, when I was playing Star Wars: The Old Republic, I joined my guild, the Crescent Order, and one dude who was in charge at that point, he would soon leave. He would F off, and I'm glad he F'd off because he was a dick. He was a terrible leader. But I had an argument with him about this scene. We were taking the prequels into account. He was trying to make the argument that Vader knew that that was C-3PO right there. But I made the argument, and I did what I do. I broke it out frame by frame, and I hit him with it in our guild forums, because that's all we have back there. We're guild forums, and I broke down and I did what I do. You guys see me do it. I broke it everything. Vader and 3PO never are in eye contact once in that scene.
It's true.
Never sees him, and when 3PO speaks, that could be any droid.
Yeah, it's a universal voice, pretty much.
It could
And
be, yeah.
and since he's not an organic, Vader can't sense him to recognize him.
And they never say 3PO once in that scene.
It's true.
And Vader's never in the same room as 3PO again. So you can make that argument that Vader didn't know that that was his droid there. And I've always found that a cool instance when you take the whole thing into account. R2 was with Luke.
Well, right, during that sequence. But is there any point in the original trilogy where Vader interacts with either droid?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Where is there any place?
Not a single one.
Not directly. The closest is that scene. That's the closest 3PO ever gets to Vader. And he's on Chewie's back. And 3PO, of course, 3PO wouldn't remember. His mind gets wiped at the end of Revenge of the Sith. But Vader
R2 would, but yeah.
Yeah. And
Vader would.
Vader would have noticed him, but 3PO's in pieces. The lighting's bad, and it could be anybody's voice.
Well, and he's on Chewie's back, facing away from him.
Yeah, and they never say 3PO. So I won that debate. I won it. I beat him into the ground. I won that debate. But I always found that interesting. That scene, the lighting, and there's a moment there when when everything's going down after Chewie goes berserk and starts throwing troopers everywhere, and Han's trying to calm him down. There's a moment where you're focusing on Leia as the smoke clears and it's just Vader's helmet and she looks at him. I think that's the moment she felt something for the first time in the Force, because she backs away and clings to Chewie, and then we get the kiss and the "I love you, I know." So the whole structure of that scene, it's just fanatic. Of course, we know the lore, where Harrison Ford was the one that finally found the perfect ending to that, because they spent like how many days? An entire day. They couldn't get it right. It just felt stupid. And then he just goes, "I got it, guys. I'm gonna do this. I know." And it's iconic. It's so iconic. I have a poster that I'm gonna frame at some point in a closet. It's a custom made poster where there's silhouettes. Or just "I love you, I know," and I can't wait to get it up. It's a nice long tapestry poster. Can't wait to get it up on the wall. I'm probably not going to do it until I move, because I don't want to move frame stuff. I just want to leave it. They're safer in the tubes. Just safer in the tubes.
Even back then, saying I love you too" was incredibly cliche. Like it's hard to come up with new ways to say "I love you."
All right, so let's hurry this along. So that whole scene, it's Vader's power and presence, and then we get to the duel. This is considered, some say this is the best duel in all of Star Wars. And when I say all Star Wars, I mean the 6 movies.
Right. I can see an argument for it.
Some will say Phantom Menace is that, but you can give Phantom Menace maybe an edge because of the choreography and what's his name, who plays Darth Maul? I suddenly forgot his name.
Ray Park.
Ray Park, thank you. And just the badassery that is Ray Park. But there's just something about this fight, as simple as it is, because it took that step from the larger duel, from the simplistic duel of New Hope, to this suddenly back and forth fight between Vader and Luke. And for the first two parts of it, Vader toys with Luke, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Toys with Luke to the whole point where where at one point there's this.
All too easy.
I mean, he toys with him. He's fighting with one. He's doing a one-handed saber stance. By the end of it, when Luke after he uses the telekinetic storm and he knocks Luke out there, and Luke makes his way around to the front and they fight. When it starts again, he's double gripping and he's going hard. He's going juggernaut hard on him, and he's seriously fighting. And that final stretch where he's pushing Luke back, he's fighting seriously at that point because Luke has pushed him. When you read Shadows of the Empire, and I mean, maybe it's not fair for me to bring this in, but when you read Shadows of the Empire and Vader is facing training droids, none of them can be as he's remarking that Luke was so much faster and he's trying to simulate how fast he was when they were fighting, and he can't quite get that because he's frustrated. And like Mustang said, he doesn't. And that moment where Luke wounds him, and you realize he wounds him where he's still got flesh. That's still flesh up there. We don't know it at this point. We don't know that, but that's still flesh. It's so great, and just the overpoweringness of Vader, and then of course you get the reveal, the epic reveal. So when you watch this fight, are you still pulled into this fight with all its? Even though you know what's going to happen, I'm pulled in every time. I'm edging my seat every time.
Oh, absolutely. Because just like you said, it's so much more than just choreography. And that's what makes a truly great fight sequence. We've got story buildup. We've got character buildup. We've got lighting making an atmosphere. We've got actual smoke machines making an atmosphere. There's dynamic scenery. Like, I miss dynamic fights. That's something I talk a lot about in Marvel breakdowns and recent Star Wars breakdowns. Is everything's just very static. You just kind of go back and forth. Everything's flat. The ground's flat. You're not using your environment to your advantage. In this, he's 100%. Both of them are, from the caverns underneath the carbonite pit, those tunnels, to when he's doing the telekinesis storm, to when they go outside on the platform. There's just so much going on, and it's so narratively and emotionally fulfilling that makes it stand up so well. Beyond the technology, it looks beautiful still. It still 100% holds up from a visual standpoint. You should get pulled in every time. Absolutely. I can get the New Hope one, people having an issue getting pulled in with, but this one, everybody should every single time.
Legatus, the more machine now, more than man, twisted and evil. That's Jedi. That's a Jedi line. He's more machine now, man, twisted and evil. That's the conversation.
Luke on Dagobah.
That's Jedi. But yeah, so I used to reenact that fight playing as a kid all the time, and where Vader would get him down, you are beaten. It is useless to resist. And it's just, boom, boom. I had the choreography down, Pat. That's how into it I was as a kid. I had the choreography down, and it's just everything's about it. And Mustang, when I was a little kid, it kind of just all kind of was one moment for me. But as someone who had to watch it when it happened, way closer to adulthood than I was as a kid when it happened, the reveal of Vader.
Like I said, when we started this out, everybody was walking out of the theater in shock and talking about it. There was nothing like it.
I am your father.
Well, and we've talked a few times about how impactful this was onto the film industry as a whole. I think this was the first real big instance, at least that I'm familiar with. Again, chat's been correcting us a little bit in the chat. It's the first instance of a surprise family member.
Subjective stuff. I mean,
but a surprise family member. It's 100% a cliche at this point. Like, if I watch a new thing and there's like, "You're my secret brother this whole time," a la Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm gonna roll my eyes a little bit. I'm just gonna be like, "Oh, come on, come up with something new." But at this point in Empire, I'm sure it's been done before. Chat absolutely can correct me. But I feel like it's what defined it as something that people were trying to replicate for years.
The only thing,
go ahead.
The only thing close to it was the Parent Trap, the original Parent Trap.
Mm.
That would be the only thing that I can even think of, because I've thought about this over the years. I mean, you bring up a good subject. What else was there? Well, the Parent Trap. Because
you discover we're twins. I mean,
yeah. That
should be kind of obvious.
But the thing is, it's just especially you have it on top of Vader betrayed and murdered your father. You're operating on that line of thought, that evidence from the first movie, and then of course you get a certain point of view in Return of the Jedi, and that's how George fixed his changing things midstream. But it still works.
I've been sitting here thinking, since you brought up Leia, there's only 2 times in all 3 that her and Vader ever saw each other.
Death Star and there.
Yeah.
Well, on Bespin. We could say Bespin Holst. There were several encounters on Bespin.
Well, beginning of New Hope, too.
Well, we're saying on the Death Star. I mean,
no, before the Death Star.
No, that's part of it. There's only 2 times that they were. I mean, she was around Vader a lot in New Hope because of she'd been captured, but
Well, he
that we
tortured
saw.
her.
We saw on
That-
screen too.
And there's one, I forget which book it is. I can't remember now, but there's a moment where there's a line that Leia has at one point where or it's a thought to Leia, or was it Han? I don't remember which book it is, where they're able to commiserate with the fact that they were both tortured by Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Because he tortured her with with the torture droid on the Death Star.
The probe droid.
Yeah. I meant the torture droid. Stop it! Oh no!
It did have something that it was going to poke him with.
It had, but it was.
Okay,
but
Jeremy.
it's shut up. But it all comes together, and it's shocking. And just to wind it down now, you end this movie on a down note. Han is captured. The rebellion hasn't suffered a major hit. They just were routed on a thing. But that's when you think about it, that's the amazing thing about this. The defeats in this movie are on personal small levels.
Mm-hmm.
It meant something.
But it's on little levels. It's not the rebellion doesn't suffer these defeats. These are the characters that suffer this defeat.
I feel like the rebels came out not on top, obviously, but they achieved their intended victory at Hoth by escaping.
Yeah,
so that isn't a loss.
That's
entirely.
Yeah,
they did what they needed to do.
And the rebel fleet is still out there, mobile, this and that. I mean, the rebellion's fine in this movie. You have to realize that's a great thing about the story. That the rebellion is fine. It's our characters that suffer the defeat in this. It's Luke that suffers trauma. It's Leia that has her heart broken because the man she has just realized she's in love with has been taken from her. And even Vader suffers. He wins, but he loses because he didn't turn Luke.
Well, I just love that shot at the end when Vader's realizing what's happening, and you can see he's sad. That's the emotion.
It's all show don't tell. He goes like this, looks out the window, looks again, and then turns and walks away. And as I was alluding to earlier, that's the only reason Admiral Piet only gets demoted to Captain Piet and doesn't get ganked, because Vader was too depressed at that moment. He was too sad.
It's so well done. And yeah, even as a kid, I got the impression that he was sad. And if it weren't for that scene, I think Return of the Jedi would have had some issues. That scene sets up his turn, even in a small way. But if you just go into Return of the Jedi and looks like he's good, and then you get the conversation on the bridge,
that goodness in you. Luke says, "I felt it in you." So, because right there, we know they're connected in that moment. Luke, father, son, come with me. It is the only way. I mean, they are connected there. That could be argued the moment that Luke felt that little spark of goodness that is still Anakin Skywalker deep down inside.
The reason why I always thought Piet survived is because Vader had just failed. He knew Luke survived. First time he felt failure himself.
Yeah, because he's had nothing but wins since Revenge of the Sith.
Until fucking Disney came along and it's like, there's 20 Jedi now that have survived the Purge.
And Vader constantly is fighting new foes, and he's now got Force impotence or whatever it is. This is Vader at his peak, and he's powerful, and that's the crack in his Sith facade right there, that he couldn't turn his son. And the speech there, you and I could rule the galaxy as father and son. That's all he wants right there. Once he realizes, again, with just a little bit of retconning, that little piece of Padme is right there, and he can see his family. Part of her is right there. It's his son. He can have it, because remember, Padme, we can make this galaxy the way we want it to. I mean, it's all right there. It's all right there, and it's great. And we end on such a sad note, yet it's a sad ending, but the movie still ends on optimism. That's how great it is.
Oh, the shot of seeing the Falcon fly away with Lando.
I posted. I took a picture of it. I put it up on Twitter last night. I stopped. I was waiting for that moment because I wanted everybody to realize this is how I feel as I'm finishing the movie last night. Between FNT and starting Ballbusters last night, it's like, oh, this is great. You're still hope. It's a downer ending, but there's still hope. There's still hope. All right. We're going to end it here because Jed has to go. But I've loved it. We could talk about this forever. And we're going to talk about it forever in 2 weeks. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Scores. I will go first. I told you I wasn't going to give a 10 out of 10, and I'm going to commit to that. in the end, I'm scoring 9.7 out of 10. Those little bits just drop it ever so slightly from the perfect movie. There's little bits we talked about. So I'm going 9.7 out of 10. Mustang, as guest, what is your score?
I'm going to go with what I had when I walked out of the theater. So pissed off, so angry, so excited for the next one, looking forward to it. But there was a longing left in me, so I couldn't give it a 10. It's a 9.8, but not a 10.
9.8. 9.8, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go 9.8, but I thought I gotta go 9. I gotta go 9.7. Dead with your new perspective right now.
I am right there with both of you guys because a lot of my perspectives have changed overall because I've started to be a film critic. I've started to look at scripts, look at objective quality as best as I can versus subjective enjoyment crafted by nostalgia. So it's a lot higher than I ever would have imagined, especially like so much of it holds up from the model work, the technology, the character work, the subtlety, like you're talking about with Leia taking a step back. There's just so much going on, and like there's layers upon layers. Like overall, the plot's relatively simple. It's very simple, but there's so much going on, and that's what I love is a script that's able to have a simple plot yet still have countless layers. Like there's no one scene in this movie that just has one interpretation, one thing to take away from it, and that's it. Every scene has so much going for it, but you could describe it as they walk over there. Well, there's a lot more to it. So I am right there with you guys with a 9.7. Again, some of the same things that Adam said with some of the continuity isn't clear. It works and it is right for the story. It just needs to be shown a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or even told. And yeah, just so much subtlety. Of the original Star Wars movies, I would say that subtlety is the one that describes this one the best because there's show, don't tell. Vader's just little look. You get an immense feeling of sadness. And this is what I cite as a great example for why The Mandalorian should be so much better. A lot of people are saying he needs to take off his mask so he can emote. He can't be an actor without taking off his mask. As a child, I got sadness from Vader by him looking back and forth a little bit. That is immensely talented by David Prowse, by James Earl Jones, just everyone crafting him.
Next week with Jedi, James Earl Jones gives his best performance as Vader.
Absolutely.
With some of the lines he delivers, and we'll talk about that next week. Oh, it's great. So, guys, thank you for being here. Chat, we love you. Again, we interacted with you a little bit more this week than we normally do because you guys were excited as we were, and we could go on for another 2 hours. There's so much we haven't talked about, but that's for another day or another.
We haven't even talked about Hoth.
We didn't even talk about Boba Fett. We didn't talk about Luke. You realize we didn't talk about Luke at all.
You guys can keep going. You guys
I'll
can go
keep
for
going.
hours.
I got nothing. I'm a bachelor tonight.
I won't eat dinner. It's 2 hours. If we had a bigger panel, we could keep going. But we've got our scores. We could come back. We could continue this in 2 weeks. We could come Star Wars Day. We have a lot to talk about. Anyway, and again, this is Empire Strikes Back. It's not new ground. I think it's interesting that we could go a whole conversation without talking about Luke Skywalker.
There's so much going on.
We had an entire show and we just did it. We didn't talk about Luke because there's so much we can talk about that we love, and there's still Luke to talk about and Leia to talk about. We barely talk. I love it. I love real Star Wars. It's ours.
You need to do a Mellow Mondays, make it Saturday Night Drive-In Part 2.
We could. Yeah. I mean, Mellow Mondays is coming back this next week, and I'm I'm revamping the show slightly. Yeah, the people asked, and people said bring back Mellow Mondays. So we're coming back with Mellow Mondays this week, and I'm revamping it slightly. I'm revamping it slightly in terms of how I'm going to approach doing it. Not so much topics, but just kind of things I want to talk about, and I have no problem continuing this on Monday. No.
Dude, I'm there for this topic. This has been great.
All right, guys. Thanks again for being here. Chat, we love you. If you're watching on the replay, hit that like button, leave a comment. And you know what? I think I might actually just leave this up and not re-upload it because there was just so much goodness with this. I don't want to. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm not gonna do a re-upload. I'm gonna leave this as it is because it was so good. Because I want people to see the chat because the chat was great tonight talking with us. I want to
And
keep the chat
we
alive.
want to end up with Stephen Watson's. I
Yeah.
love what Stephen Watson just put in the chat. The last thing he did.
Hang on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephen Watson. I love real Star Wars. I'm carrying that flag. My friends here, they love Star Wars too. Everybody who comes through here, we all love real Star Wars, and we will continue to fight for it. Some people don't have to, but that's why I'm here. And I promise some people, the book club is coming back very soon. I've promised that several times lately. It's coming back. I'm finding a way. Thank you again, everybody. We will catch you tomorrow on the round table if you're watching this real time. Until then, take it easy. Have a good rest of your night or day, wherever you may be.
Chevron 1, encoded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Well, I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi, and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.